Pay my mortgage. My mom demanded at Thanksgiving. I dropped an $84,000 receipt binder, canceled sister-in-law's SUV, and revealed my house. My name is Marcus. I am 35 years old, and I run a sports rehabilitation and physical therapy clinic. It's a modest space that perpetually smells of peppermint oil, eucalyptus, and the heavy-duty menthol patches I buy in bulk because my patients swear by them and they cost a fraction of the name brand stuff. The clinic isn't glamorous. The waiting room chairs are covered in a beige vinyl that has seen better days, but they are comfortable. The lighting is that standard fluorescent hum that makes everyone look a little bit exhausted, but the equipment is top tier. I built this place with my own 2 hands, blood, sweat, and a terrifying amount of debt over the course of 7 years. I started with a single rented room in the back of a martial arts gym, working on blown-out knees and torn rotator cuffs for guys who couldn't afford to miss a shift at the warehouse. I took every walk-in, worked every local weekend 5K marathon tent, and slowly built a reputation. I mention all of this because my family's perception of my career and my money is the rotting foundation this entire story is built on. The drive to my brother Derek's house for Thanksgiving took exactly 22 minutes. I had spent the previous night baking a homemade pecan pie from scratch. I don't even like baking, but I did it because it was a tradition my grandmother started, and I was trying, as I always did, to keep the peace. I also brought a 6-pack of expensive craft ginger ale because my sister-in-law, Chloe, had suddenly decided she was sensitive to artificial sweeteners. Before I even merged onto the highway, I felt that familiar, heavy tightness in the center of my chest. If you come from a family that views you not as a person, but as a utility, you know exactly what this tightness feels like. It's an early warning system. A biological radar that activates the moment you are within a 10-mile radius of people who love what you do for them, but not who you are. I had to park 3 blocks away from Derek's house. The street was crammed with cars, stacked bumper to bumper, half of them parked illegally on the brown autumn grass. The wind coming off the street was bitter and hollow, slicing right through the thin wool of my coat. I walked the 3 blocks carrying the pie in one hand and the ginger ales in the other, dreading the moment I would have to turn the brass knob on their front door. Derek's house is a sprawling, slightly outdated split level in a neighborhood where everyone desperately pretends they are wealthier than they are. The kind of subdivision where the HOA cares more about the color of your mailbox than the structural integrity of your roof. Chloe had decorated the front porch with an aggressive amount of seasonal decor gourds, faux rustic wooden signs that said "Gather," and an oversized wreath that looked like it cost more than my weekly grocery budget. I pushed the door open and was instantly hit by a wall of sound, heat, and the smell of roasting meat and burnt butter. There were at least 45 people crammed into the house. It was absolute chaos. The television in the living room was blaring a football game that half the room was screaming at. A baby I didn't recognize was having a total meltdown on the staircase. 2 of my younger cousins were sliding across the hardwood floor in their socks, nearly crashing into a folding table loaded with casseroles. A woman from my mother's church was aggressively reorganizing the dessert station, looking offended by everything around her. I navigated through the maze of folding chairs and winter coats piled on the banister. I nodded at my dad, who was stationed in his usual corner. He gave me a slight upward tilt of his chin, his maximum effort for a greeting, and immediately looked back at the TV. He had perfected the art of being physically present while completely emotionally absent. I hadn't even fully stepped into the kitchen before my mother's voice cut through the noise. She didn't turn around from the stovetop where she was violently mashing sweet potatoes. "Marcus," she said. She didn't say it like a greeting. She said it like a warden calling a prisoner's number. I set the pecan pie down on the granite counter, moving a stack of dirty plates out of the way. "Hey Mom, happy Thanksgiving." I brought the pie. She stopped mashing. She didn't look at the pie. "The mortgage is due on Tuesday. I need to pause here and make something crystal clear." It was not the demand for money that shocked me. I had heard variations of, "The bill is due," "We're short this month," and "We need a favor," so many times over the last half-decade, that the words had lost all meaning. What paralyzed me was the venue. She didn't pull me into the pantry. She didn't call me the night before. She didn't even drop her voice. She said it at full volume, right at the threshold of the kitchen and the living room, with dozens of people standing within earshot. I kept my voice low, trying to de-escalate. "Mom, we talked about this on Tuesday. I told you I am completely tapped out for the month. I have payroll to meet." The noise in the immediate vicinity began to evaporate. The cousins stopped sliding. The church lady froze with a pie server in her hand. The conversations in the adjoining dining room died off mid-sentence. Suddenly, 45 people, neighbors, distant relatives, the pastor from her church were dead silent, looking directly at me. My mother finally turned around. Her face was locked into a hard, rigid mask. It was the expression she wore when she had decided reality was going to bend to her will, regardless of the collateral damage. "Either pay the mortgage," she said. her voice echoing perfectly in the sudden quiet, or get out. It felt like a physical blow. It was so clean, so loud, and so meticulously designed to break me in front of an audience. From the living room couch, Chloe lazily swirled a glass of wine. She let out a short, mocking laugh. "Let's see how you survive in the real world without us, Marcus." I looked at my brother, Derek. He was standing near the fridge, holding a beer. He looked at the floor. He wouldn't make eye contact with me. My dad did his signature move, a slow shrug of his shoulders, retreating deeper into his invisible shell, praying the conflict would just wash over him. My hands started to shake. I pressed them flat against the cold granite of the kitchen island so nobody would see the tremor. "You're doing this right now? Here? In front of everyone?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My mother took a step closer. The overpowering scent of her expensive, powdery perfume hit my nose. "I am done keeping your secrets," she announced to the room. "We carried you when you had nothing. We fed you. We housed you. You pay what this family is owed, or you don't come back. I am sick of funding your little glorified lotion-rubbing hobby while we struggle." She called my licensed, medical practice, a business I bled for, a clinic that helped people walk again, a glorified lotion-rubbing hobby, in front of her pastor, in front of my entire extended family. I let out a laugh. Just one short, sharp exhale of breath. It was the involuntary sound your body makes when the humiliation is so vast, your brain simply cannot process it. Chloe started a slow, sarcastic golf clap from the couch. "Preach, Linda," she muttered. The silence in the house was suffocating. Somewhere in the back room, the baby hiccuped, and it sounded like a gunshot. I looked at my mother. I looked at Derek, who was still studying the floorboards. I looked at Chloe's smug face. "Message received," I said softly. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I didn't give them the dramatic, screaming meltdown they were so clearly trying to provoke. I calmly picked up my coat from the back of a chair. I grabbed the 6-pack of craft ginger ale, because I paid $30 for it, and I wasn't leaving it for Chloe. I left the pecan pie sitting next to the dirty dishes. I baked it, but they could choke on it for all I cared. I turned and walked out. I walked past the staring church ladies, past the silent cousins, past the cooling green bean casseroles. I walked out the front door and pulled it shut behind me with a quiet, definitive click. I made it to my car, got in, locked the doors, and rested my forehead against the freezing leather of the steering wheel. The street was completely still. Faintly, through the walls of the houses, I could hear the muffled cheers of the football game. I sat there in the freezing cold for 20 minutes, just breathing. My chest felt like it had been cracked open. But as I sat there, something shifted. The panic and the humiliation started to recede, leaving behind something entirely different. It wasn't rage. Rage is hot and chaotic. This was cold. It was absolute, crystalline clarity. The machine inside me that had been running on fumes, generating excuses, absorbing guilt, and prioritizing their survival over my own, simply powered down. It died. And in its place, a very cold, very calculating accountant woke up. To understand what happened next, I need to explain how you become a family bank. It never happens overnight. No one ever sits you down and says, "Hey, we are going to slowly drain your life savings over the next 5 years until you are a hollow shell of a human being." It happens in increments. It starts with $60. When I was 30, right after I opened my first standalone clinic room, my parents called. Their electric bill was short. "Just until Friday, sweetie," my mom had said. I transferred $85. Friday came and went. I didn't ask for it back because I loved them, and who starts a war over $80? 3 months later, Derek's truck transmission blew. He needed it to get to his contracting job. He was terrified he'd be fired. He needed $1,200. I swear on my life, bro, I'll pay you back in installments. I paid the mechanic directly. He never paid me back a single dime. I let it slide because he was my older brother, the guy who used to protect me from bullies in middle school. Then it accelerated. Dad needed winter tires because the treads were bald and the snow was coming. Mom needed a root canal that her bottom-tier insurance refused to cover. Then it was back-to-school clothes for Derek and Chloe's kids. Then it was groceries at the end of the month when Derek's hours got cut. The Range Rover Evoque you're leasing currently has 3 missed payments. The room stopped. The air pressure seemed to drop. Chloe froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. "Excuse me?" Mom said, looking back and forth between us. "The lease is in Derek's name," I continued, projecting my voice so every word landed like a hammer. "The lender has sent 2 final warning notices. I know this, because the autopay for that luxury SUV is secretly connected to my clinic's business credit card. You stole my credit card number, Chloe. You've been charging me $650 a month to play pretend on Instagram." Mom whipped her head toward Derek. "Derek? Is this true?" You're stealing from your brother? Derek looked like he was going to vomit. He gripped the edge of the counter so hard his knuckles turned white. I didn't know whose card it was. He stammered, looking at Chloe with raw betrayal. Chloe told me she secured corporate sponsorship for the lease. Corporate sponsorship? I laughed, a harsh, barking sound. I am the corporation, Derek. I've been funding her boss babe delusions while eating ramen noodles. I didn't steal it, Chloe shrieked, her face turning crimson. It was an administrative error. The accounts got crossed on the Apple Pay. I was going to reimburse you when my wellness brand launched. I canceled the card at 4 a.m., I said, ignoring her screaming. The bank is flagging it as fraudulent activity. Good luck with the repo, man. I pointed to the rules on the table. If you want my help going forward, it will not be financial. It will be strategic. Cancel the Evoke. Sell the designer clothes. Cut the streaming subscriptions. Call your mortgage lender right now and beg for a forbearance program. They would rather pause your payments than foreclose. These are your real options. Chloe crossed her arms, her nails digging into her sleeves. And what exactly is Derek supposed to do while we wait for your genius strategy to work? Just magically conjure money? He can get a second job, I said. Deliver pizzas. Work at a warehouse. Do what normal people do when they are broke. Mom slammed her hand flat against the granite island. The coffee mugs rattled. We are not laborers, Marcus. We are an educated family. Your brother is not scrubbing toilets to appease your ego. I looked at my mother. I looked at the sheer, unadulterated delusion radiating from her eyes. Then you'll be tenants, I said simply. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The reality of the situation finally crashed down on them. The ATM was broken. The bank vault was sealed. The safety net had been completely severed. You think you're so much better than us, Chloe hissed, venom dripping from every syllable. You think because you crack backs for a living you're a god. No, I said, buttoning my suit jacket. I think reality exists whether you choose to acknowledge it or not. I'm choosing reality. You guys can stay in the fantasy. GAV, I turned around and started walking toward the front door. Derek finally spoke. His voice was cracked, hollowed out. Where are you going, Marcus? I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. I looked back at them over my shoulder. To my house. Mom blinked, her brow furrowing in confusion. Your apartment? No, I said, pushing the door open, letting the freezing November wind rush into the stale house. My house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, hardwood floors. I closed on it last Tuesday. I wanted one thing in my life that didn't belong to this family. Behind me, I heard Chloe gasp. I heard Mom's voice start to rise, winding up for another screaming tirade about how I was a traitor, how I would regret this, how God would punish me. I didn't stay to listen. I stepped out onto the porch, walked down the driveway, and got into my car. I started the engine, turned the heater on full blast, and drove away. For the first time in 5 years, I was driving toward a destination that had only my name on the deed. It's been 3 weeks since Thanksgiving. The fallout was immediate, chaotic, and incredibly predictable. The first wave was the voicemail blitzkrieg. Mom realized I had blocked her number by Friday afternoon, so she started using Google Voice numbers to bypass the block. She left 14 voicemails over the course of 3 days. They cycled through the standard stages of toxic grief. Voicemail 1. Rage. You are dead to me. You have destroyed this family over pennies. Voicemail 5. Guilt. Your father's blood pressure is spiking. If he has a heart attack, it is on your hands. Voicemail 11. Bargaining. Just pay the mortgage this one last time, Marcus. Just to get us to January. I promise I will never ask again. I exported all the audio files to a secure cloud folder labeled Evidence and deleted them from my phone. Chloe took a different route. She sent me a barrage of voice memos on WhatsApp. She wasn't angry, she was manic. She pitched me 3 different business ideas in the span of 48 hours. She wanted me to angel invest $10,000 into a new dropshipping scheme, promising me a 40% ROI by Easter. When I didn't respond, she switched tactics and threatened to sue me for defamation because I called her a thief in front of Derek. I forwarded her the credit card fraud report I filed with the bank. She hasn't messaged me since. Then came the smear campaign. Distant aunts and cousins I hadn't spoken to in a decade started posting vague, passive-aggressive statuses on Facebook. So sad when the younger generation forgets who wiped their tears. Money changes people, but family is forever. I muted all of them. I didn't engage. Engaging is what they want. It gives them oxygen. I suffocated them with silence. The climax of the fallout happened exactly 1 week ago. I was at the clinic, finishing up some charting after hours. The waiting room was empty. The bell above the glass door chimed. I walked out of my office, expecting the late-night cleaning crew. It was Mom. She was wearing her expensive wool coat, clutching her designer handbag. She stood in the center of the waiting area, looking around. She had never actually been inside my clinic before. She had always claimed she was too busy to visit. I watched her eyes scan the room. I watched her take in the framed medical degrees on the wall, the state-of-the-art ultrasound therapy machines, the pristine adjustment tables, the wall of signed photos from local athletes I had rehabbed. I could see her brain working, trying desperately to find a flaw, something to criticize, something to diminish what I had built. She walked over to the reception desk and ran her index finger along the edge of the polished wood. "Nice place," she said softly, her tone entirely unreadable. "Must have been nice to build an empire on the back of your family's sacrifices." I set my clipboard down on the desk. I didn't get angry. I just felt incredibly tired. "It was built on 80-hour work weeks and ramen noodles, Mom," I said. She looked at me, her eyes hardening. "You embarrassed me, Marcus. You told me to pay or disappear in front of 45 people. You humiliated me in front of Pastor Miller. You backed me into a corner in front of 45 people." I corrected her. "You put a gun to my head and expected me to hand over my wallet. I just showed everyone the bullets. Key. She didn't answer right away. She looked down at the floor. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw the facade crack. I thought I saw genuine fear. "We are going to lose the house, Marcus," she whispered. It was the most honest thing she had said to me in a decade. "Then you need to make real cuts," I said, my voice softening just a fraction. "Cancel the luxury cars. Downgrade the internet. Stop buying organic groceries. Derek needs to pick up extra shifts. Dad needs to come out of retirement and work part-time. The options exist, Mom. You just think you're too good for them." She stiffened, the vulnerability vanishing instantly, replaced by the familiar rigid pride. "We believed in you when you were nobody, Marcus. You owe us." I took a deep breath, letting the scent of eucalyptus fill my lungs. "I paid my debt, Mom," I said smoothly. "I paid it back to the tune of $84,350. I have the receipts. The debt is settled." I walked over to the glass front door and held it open for her. The cold night air rushed into the warm clinic. "You can stay in my life if you want to be my mother," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "But your bank is permanently closed." She stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. She realized I wasn't bluffing. The well was truly dry. She tightened her grip on her purse, walked out the door without another word, and disappeared into the dark parking lot. It's been a few more weeks. Things have finally settled into a quiet, strange, new rhythm. Mom hasn't called again. The Google Voice numbers stopped. I think she finally accepted that the wall is impenetrable. Derek texted me 4 days ago. It was a short message, no drama, no hidden requests for cash. "Derek, hey man, got a second job working the night shift at the Amazon fulfillment center. It sucks, but it pays the property tax. Chloe is furious. I'm not home at night, but whatever." I stared at that text for 20 minutes. I typed out a dozen replies, but deleted all of them. I ended up just liking the message with a thumbs-up reaction. It's not forgiveness, but it's an acknowledgement that he is finally living in reality. I hope he makes it, I really do. As for me, I am sitting in my new house. It's not a mansion. It's a modest, 3-bedroom ranch, built in the 1980s. The paint in the kitchen is a hideous shade of mustard yellow that I need to scrape off. There is a floorboard right outside the master bedroom that squeaks loudly every time I step on it. The backyard has a massive, ancient oak tree that drops leaves incessantly, forcing me to rake every single weekend. I absolutely love it. I spent the first week sleeping on a $40 air mattress in the living room, because I couldn't afford to buy furniture yet. I drank my morning coffee out of paper cups. I sat on the bare hardwood floor with my laptop, opening my budgeting software. I created the new monthly budget. Mortgage, paid. Utilities, paid. Clinic overhead, paid. Groceries, paid. Savings account, funded. Family bailouts, $0. Seeing that zero next to the family category felt illegal at first. My brain had been so heavily conditioned to panic, to anticipate the emergency text, to hoard cash for their inevitable disasters. The first few days, I would wake up in a cold sweat, reaching for my phone to check the group chat. But the chat is muted. The phone is silent. This morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. I walked into my mustard yellow kitchen. I brewed a pot of strong, cheap coffee. I stood by the window and watched the sun come up over my backyard. The house was completely, beautifully silent. No vibrating phones. No screaming matches. No guilt trips. Just me, the squeaky floorboard, and a deed with only my name on it. I know some people might read this and think I was too harsh. They might think keeping a 5-year spreadsheet is petty, or that dropping the binder at Thanksgiving was cruel. Part of me still wrestles with that guilt. The conditioning runs deep. But then I remember the $84,350. I remember the Range Rover. I remember being told my life's work was a lotion-rubbing hobby. I didn't abandon my family. I just finally stopped letting them drown me.